when did you first even, jokingly or for fun or whatever, just try acting? And then when did it become something that was more serious and clearly a long-term thing?
I guess in junior high, I started doing like school plays and stuff, and I remember I got the lead role in Cheaper by the Dozen in the 7th grade, and I mean, it's a long play, and there were like these long stretches of dialogue, and I remember having to memorize all of it, and it was so difficult. My mom just sat, I remember sitting out on the back patio with her memorizing Cheaper by the Dozen. It was like you would think they would just trim it down to a more digestible size for 13-year-olds. But no, we did that whole play, and it was crazy, but I remember I did it, and I remember saying lines and not knowing completely what they meant, but just by the sheer strength of the built-in sort of punchlines and stuff, getting laughs from the audience and not knowing why or what it meant, and then figuring out what it meant up there with the audience and being like, oh, so this is, and kind of figuring all of that out in the moment. It was really fun, and I'm sure I was terrible, but it was just kind of, I got really addicted to that in a sense, I guess. And then in high school I did plays, but wasn't like, and I always wanted to be an actor when I got older, but I didn't tell anyone because it was kind of an embarrassing thing, and until it was time to sort of look for schools at the end of high school, then I kind of told my family, because I had to apply to a couple of acting schools and stuff.
Were they were supportive of it?
Yeah, totally.
That's great.
I mean, they're so supportive. I think also because we lived in Santa Cruz, away from Los Angeles, so no one knew what a sheer gamble it is to like choose that for an occupation, like what the odds are. Really, they were really supportive. If they knew, I don't know if they would have been, probably, because they're all lovely, but I think also because it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like saying I'm going to be an astronaut, just not in the sense that it's nearly as difficult as being an astronaut, but in the sense that it's just a little crazy, because it's the odds of actually getting some traction are a little low, and it took me so long to get any traction that I think they were probably worried for a long time.
I definitely want to come back to that point, but I want to jump back for a second and also ask you, in the same way, when did acting appeal to you? When did comedy first strike you as something you were good at? Because I think that's been a common thread throughout a lot of the work that's made you, as sort of as you've become better known. That was a big part of it. And
yeah, it's funny because I think that started with I just had a little role in Knocked Up, and that was just something that, because I'm buddies with Paul Rudd and Shauna Robertson, who was producing Knocked Up, I was just kind of around that summer that they were making at like barbecues and like just hanging out, and so Shauna asked me to do that role, or asked Judd if I could do that role, and I was like doing this really serious show on HBO, to Tell Me You Love Me, and so the Knocked Up thing, I didn't think of it. It just to me it was just another like couple days on a movie that I was doing every once in a while back then, and I didn't. I mean, I knew it was because 40-Year-Old Virgin came out, so I knew it was going to be the movie was going to be a big deal, but I didn't see it as kind of a harbinger for like where my career would go, but it was really fun because there's all that improvisation and all of that I was not used to at all, and then the following summer, I got. I guess it was a year later, 2 years later, a year later, that I got Step Brothers, and so that really kind of set that, set into motion, kind of me going in that direction, and I'm really grateful for it because it's so fun, and after working that way, I wasn't sure I ever wanted to go back to working
You talked about the fact that it wasn't easy necessarily to get to this point. I think that's an understatement. But what was there ever a point where it was so challenging or frustrating that you thought perhaps, it's not worth the commitment that you had made up to that point?
Yeah, I've had a few scary moments just because I never had any other real skill set, and and at times I questioned this skill set. And that's really scary when you question, not only am I any good at this, but do I even enjoy it? Because I had so thrown myself into this at such an early age. At 20, I started kind of trying to professionally do this. That I remember there was a point like around 2005 or something where I kind of slowed down, and I remember talking to my wife and just saying like, you know what? It's been like 5 years since I even stopped to consider if I even like doing this, because I've had my head down for so long trying to do it, and lived in this bubble of it's going to be fine, and then you slow down and try and think if you even enjoy doing it anymore, or if it's all about just trying to get that, become successful. And so that's when I started kind of finding a different approach to what I was doing and trying to find things that I enjoyed doing. And it was, I think it's an important point to get to, and I'm sure a lot of people get to it. I just kind of got to it a few years back. Sorry,
No, that's great. It's very interesting. And I mean, I guess one of the things, aside from those movies that you mentioned that really maybe raised the profile to an extent, another thing had to have been the various TV projects that have turned out so well. And I'm just curious how they originated and if they were something that immediately was clear to you were going to be good.
That's, yeah, I mean, I guess, sorry. Party Down started because I was just friends with those guys, with Rob Thomas and Dan Etheridge and John Enbaum and Paul Rudd, who created it with those guys. And so I just sort of, we just kind of blindly went into it, not knowing if it was going to be any good or if people would see it, just because it was this little low budget thing that was going to be on Stars, and Stars wasn't really known for original programming, so the stakes were pretty low. It was like, well, if it's great, maybe someone will see it. If it's not great, no one will see it, so it's fine. So yeah, it was sort of, and then once we started doing it, it was like, oh, this feels special. I hope this is as good as it feels, and I hope people eventually see it. And it was a little frustrating because it took a while for people to catch on, and we felt like we were doing cool stuff. But in the end, I'm happy it happened that way, because I feel like people really kind of organically found it and discovered it themselves, which I think is a special thing that's really rare in the age of things being kind of shoved down our throats constantly. I feel like people really kind of had to dig for it, and they found it, and that's part of what people enjoy about it, is that they feel like it's theirs, and it is theirs, and I think that's really, really cool.
In a sense, isn't that, I mean, kind of Parks and Rec and Eastbound and Down and these shows, they've found, their audiences have found them.
Totally.
So that's been...
Totally. Same with Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I feel like it was off the air for a while, and so people really started wanting it back, and came back, and the reaction I get from people when they talk, when people like on the street or whatever that talk to me about Party Down or Parks, is that they really feel, sometimes they really feel like it's kind of theirs, and they have this special connection to it because they feel like they kind of discovered it, and I love that. I think that's cool. I really loved that as a fan, and still do as a fan with music and TV and movies and stuff.
So specific to Friends with Kids, which I thought really played so well last night, and I just am curious, first of all, it's awesome. What a cool thing to have such a showcase, and I think the movie's going to have a large audience. And so I'm just wondering how it, how it originated. You know, John, I know for a while. I don't know
Yeah.
how far back you go with Jennifer. Probably similar.
Yeah, I mean, I've known John for probably like 15 years and Jen 13 years or whenever
Wow.
they got together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've all just been friends for years and years, and I think the movie's very personal for them because they have a lot of friends that had children, and they sort of saw the friendships sort of get downgraded a little, because when you have kids, you just don't get as much time with your friends, and I'm one of those.
I was just
have
gonna
two
ask you,
kids,
yeah.
And so when I first read the script, I was like, oh boy, sorry guys, because it's true. Like, working on this movie with John and Jen was the most time I'd been able to spend with them since having children. So it was actually really nice to get that time with them, because it had been a few years.
What was the sort of the hardest thing about making the film? I was thinking, it must in some way be a little strange to be the romantic interest of your good friend's wife.
Right.
But I'll leave it up to you. Is that one of them, or were there others that were bigger?
No, that wasn't difficult just
Yeah.
because we're friends,
Yeah.
and Jen's a great actress and everything. I think the hardest thing was just, it was like the biggest storm in 40 years in New York
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever, and we were a low budget movie and cramped into little apartments, a full crew and slew of actors and everything. So it was challenging in the way that, little independent movies are challenging. And, looking at the movie, to Jen's credit and Will Rexer, who's the DP, it does not look like the micro budgeted movie it was when we were making it. It looks lovely. So, but yeah, it was a challenging shoot because we only had like 5 weeks to shoot that whole movie, and it's a lot to shoot in that amount of time. But that was it. Other than that, it was great, and we're all that making out with your friends, so that's fine.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Congratulations.
Thanks, Scott.